I received an interesting article entitled "Arab Leaders Thank PM Benjamin Netanyahu for Destroying Hamas." And the article starts out by saying the Arab world officially rallies around Hamas against Israel on any issue normally. It said Muslim countries in conflict such as Saudi Arabia and Iran, as well as other Muslim countries, came together last week at the UN in an attempt to have Israel condemned for the so-called aggression in Gaza. However, in wake of the ever-evolving geopolitical reality in the Middle East, this seems to be only lip service, and the Arab world is actually interested in the idea of seriously hindering Hamas's terror activities. They see the atrocities and massacres committed by Islamists on a daily basis in Iraq and Syria, and are beginning to ask themselves if they serve the interest of the Arabs and Muslims. A growing number of Arabs and Muslims are fed up with the Islamist terrorists who are imposing a reign of terror and intimidation in the Arab world. And frankly, I think this is something that is prophetic. As I said a couple of weeks ago, I believe that the march of the ISIS has touched a nerve in the Arab world and the Islamic world, and that eventually it was going to bring Middle East partners together, such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Israel, and some of the other nations such as Jordan and the United Arab Emirates, and possibly Iraq. And frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if Syria was in that number as well. I'm sure that Syria considers the rebels a terrorist organization and would love to have a united front against that particular organization in the Middle East. But I think what we're seeing is we're looking at the possibility in the future of the Middle East uniting under the umbrella of defeating terrorism and terror groups. And I think that will ultimately come together when the Antichrist does rise. And I do believe that even one of the biggest supporters of terrorism, Iran, is going to actually be persuaded to come on board with this group as part of a united front against terrorism. Now, whether that will be a part of an ultimate deal with the United States or later on down the road with the Antichrist is unknown. But I do believe this is the direction in which we are headed. You know, about a decade and a half ago or so, I wrote an article based on this very premise. And if you have a mind to go look it up, it's on my website and it's under the Prophecy Commentaries section. Just go to the bottom of that page when you click on it. And the very last entry is a listing of prophecy commentaries from, I believe, 1999 to 2003, or whatever the case may be. But click on that. And the name of the article is Prophecy Alert: Wars, Terrorism, and Peace. Now, that's not the only article I wrote regarding that, but that would be where you'd probably want to start. And it's under article number 73. And if you want a good chronological order of what was happening at that time during the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians, and some of the current events that were taking place around that time along with my analysis, it'd probably be a good idea for you to take a look at some of those articles and kind of get a good handle on what was going on during that time as well. Now, here's the latest from Stratfor on the Gaza-Israeli ground war. It's entitled, "In Gaza, the Israeli military advances cautiously." Now, this basically will tell you really what's going on. I'm sure a lot of people around the prophetic world think this is going to blow up into some type of Middle East war. That's going to go up the whole Middle East, but that's not simply going to happen. The day will come, but it will be between nation states and not terrorism. And this is what Stratfor had to say. It says the Israeli invasion of Gaza, known this time around as Operation Protective Edge, has focused on the perimeter of the Palestinian territory, at least for now. Of course, there are some exceptions. Israeli Defense Forces have pushed as far inland as the area of north of Khan Yunis as they did during Operation Lead Cast in 2008 to bisect the Gaza Strip and prevent the movement and operability of Palestinian militants. But so far, ground forces have avoided urban population centers and have been only modestly harassed by small militant attacks. However, this could soon change. Though Israeli Defense Forces are advancing cautiously, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that his country would expand operations if necessary, a scenario the Israeli military has been told to prepare for as the incursion continues to develop. An expanded assault would bring Israel defense forces closer to Gaza's larger cities, which present a host of problems for advancing soldiers. Militants use urban environments to offset their military inferiority. The Israeli military clearly has the advantage in more rural areas, where it can bombard suspected militants without the risk of collateral damage, and with its technical systems can fight much more effectively at night than the Palestinian forces can. But these advantages diminish in major cities, which Israel is hesitant to bomb or shell because of the inevitable civilian casualties it would inflict. And so, as the Israeli military puts its soldiers in closer range of militant fighters operating in larger cities, it will have to allocate more personnel and material to support them. Meanwhile, the rest of the Gaza Strip is subject to targeted airstrikes and artillery attacks. In fact, shelling, naval gunfire, and airstrikes were particularly intense the night of July 18th. Apache helicopters attacked Gaza City, while artillery units and gunships attacked suspected weapons depots and rocket launch sites. And it should also be noted that artillery barrages also prevent the Palestinians from coordinating an effective counterattack. If the invasion remains relegated to border areas and buffer zones, the most that Palestinian forces can do is harass Israel defense forces with indirect fire weapons such as short-range rockets and mortars, and then retreat into larger cities. But if Israeli soldiers enter Gaza's major cities, the casualty counts may get much higher. In the meantime, as the Israeli military pushes slowly into Gaza, Palestinian militants will continue to deploy anti-tank weapons, mortar teams, and snipers to slow the advance, and to try and inflict casualties rather than massing forces and engaging them directly. It should also be noted that Israel's main purpose for this ground war is not to overthrow Hamas, although that would be a fantastic idea if they decided to do it. But as Stratford has reported, that would just be too much of a task for the IDF to take without incurring massive casualties. The Israeli leadership has said that their goal was not to unseat Hamas, but to restore calm in the Gaza Strip. Now, whether or not they will continue to move forward and reoccupy the Gaza Strip, most analysts do not believe that will be the case. But you know what? I don't rule that out completely. I think that's the possibility is somewhat low. But hey, the way things are going right now, who knows? And before I leave, I want to read you an article by Israel Today. It's called "Hamas Has Become a Millionaires Club." And it says, in 2006 legislative elections, the Palestinian street overwhelmingly voted Hamas to counter rampant financial corruption in the Palestinian Authority. Now, after years of war profiteering, it seems Hamas itself has become the premier Palestinian millionaires club. Very soon after seizing control of the Gaza Strip in 2007, Hamas and its allies began escalating rocket fire against the Jewish state. Given the severity of the Israeli reprisals, that wouldn't seem very good for business, but in fact it is. Over the past 7 years, Hamas's leadership has pulled in outrageous sums of money thanks to the Israeli blockade of Gaza. Most of the profits were the result of exorbitant taxes on the goods smuggled from Egypt in tunnels running under the Gaza border, or grossly overcharging for subsidized Egyptian fuel. Now get this, neither of those revenue streams would be possible without violently provoking Israel to lay siege to Gaza. So if this is correct, right now Hamas is becoming very rich in this latest Gaza excursion. Similarly, Hamas profits are threatened by the enormous quantity of humanitarian aid and other goods that Israel and other international community pump into Gaza every month, which is why numerous reports suggest Hamas blocks that aid from ever reaching local residents. At the same time, Hamas leaders have proved wildly successful fundraisers in their travels abroad, and since Hamas's reason for their existence is the destruction of Israel, it would be kind of hard to solicit financial backing without lobbing a few missiles at the Jews every once in a while. So where does all this money go? In recent media interviews, Professor Hamad Karmiya of Azhar University in Egypt noted that in recent years Hamas has blossomed into a movement of millionaires. According to Karmiya, Hamas can boast no fewer than 1,200 millionaires among its leadership and mid-level officials. That assertion was backed up by Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas, who in 2012 estimated the number of Gaza millionaires to be 800. In particular, overall Hamas leader Khalid Mashal has amassed a fortune of $2.6 billion, the Jordanian media reported. A year ago, when Hamas's parent organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, was ruling Egypt, the group's Gaza leadership was less weary of flaunting its wealth, and the luxury real estate market was booming as a result. All of this is happening as many Gazans wallow in poverty and struggle with a 40% unemployment rate. Imagine how many new jobs could be created by all that money Hamas collects. Instead, the terror group is well pleased to see the people of Gaza suffer, both economically and as a consequence of its violence against Israel, all in service to Hamas's ultimate goal. We'll have a hard time believing that Hamas's ultimate goal is to ever see Israel be destroyed, because if that be the case, it would seem to reason that most of their financial gain would be lost. I think it's safe to say no Israel, no struggle to be had for Hamas to go and collect and solicit fundraising from around the world. But frankly, this doesn't shock me a bit. The corruption of terrorism and the Islamic movement around the world has been much in the way of using a movement to allow the few to become rich while the others who are really struggling become more demonized and more deeply ingrained in poverty. That just kind of gives you an idea of what the Islamic movement is all about. And if you look back on the history of the Islamic movement, it's pretty much the same thing. Enslaving a bunch of people for the wealth and happiness of a few. I just thank the Lord that one day He will come back and He will set the world on a path of prosperity and 1,000 years, or should I say a near 1,000 years of righteousness. But before that day comes, the tribulation period must take place, and before that day comes, the rapture must take place. And as I've said many times, that day could be today. That day the Lord could come back and rapture this world, leaving those who have not accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior behind to go through the most horrible time the world has ever known as the tribulation period. But as I've said many times, if you don't know the Lord as Savior, you could die today. And if you died today, where would you spend eternity? So I'd stop looking for the end of the world to take place, because today could be the end of your world. And if you're a Christian today and you're looking for the rapture to take place at any moment, you need to get a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide and get it in the hands of every lost person that you know, especially your friends and loved ones. I will continue to encourage you to get my paperback bound book that I just published. It's $8 plus shipping, which is cheaper than if you were to take my free version and take it down to the bookstore or to the copy store and get it printed out. It would cost you somewhere around $12, $13 to have that done. So I'd encourage you to go out and get the free or the paid version, because it's cheaper than the free version to get printed out. And you can either go to my website or you can look it up on Amazon or one of the other online bookstores, because it's available through any of them. But probably your best bet is to go to calvaryprophecy.com or go to the About section below and just click on the link, and it'll take you right there to where you need to go. But for sure, you need to get a copy for yourself, put it on your coffee table, and then when the rapture does take place, you will have it there available for your family who has been left behind. If it gets in the hands of one of your family members, it's going to be spread throughout. It would be nice to have every family represented with one of those books, because I guarantee you, when the rapture takes place, the first people who are going to get together are family members. And I do believe that the predominant explanation for what has just happened, such as the rapture of the church, will be that the rapture just took place. So you need to get this book in your hands right now so that you can have it available when this time does take place. I know it's coming soon. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.